this past week, I met with another teacher in my PLC group, and we looked at some of our, we chose one of our common formative assessments to revamp. So I did that both with her and then in another class that I'm the only teacher of that class. So we took, in our foods class, we took one of our common formative assessments, which previously had been completely a multiple choice test, a selected response. And we revised this test to where at least 50% of it became a short answer test, to where students, the kind of the factual questions, or the questions where really kind of no critical thinking was involved, things like identifying kitchen tools, identifying kitchen terms, things like that, those remained as selected response. But then we had a section of open-ended questions, and this is where students were able to explain which type of cooking methods that they used and what made these methods effective. And they were able to think about something that they had cooked at home over the last few weeks and make connections to class. What tools that they learned about in class did they use? What methods that they've practiced in class did they use at home? And so that really gave students, or we haven't given it yet, so that will really give students a chance this next week to further demonstrate their learning and their experience with the class. I'm really excited to see what the test results are, or what the results are with this test versus, or how we can compare that with last trimester's testing on the same unit. I'm curious to see if, when students think critically and when they're able to kind of process in a different way on the short answer questions, if the portion of the test that's still multiple choice, if the scores there will change, the average scores will change versus last trimester's grades where the entire test was multiple choice, and I just definitely engage their brain in a different way. In my teen living class, which I'm the only teacher in that class, I took one test which it was already kind of similar to this format I just talked about. Most of the test was multiple choice, and then there were a few constructed response questions at the end. There were 4 constructed response questions at the end. I made the test shorter in terms of there weren't so many questions on it, but all of the questions were constructed response. And my students just took that test on Friday, and a lot of them did mention that, oh my gosh, this test was so hard compared to the other tests. But also, as we talked about it, I kind of asked them what their opinion was on the test, if they felt that it benefited them more versus a multiple choice test. And the general response was that yes, it gave them a chance to really draw a connection between, this is what we discussed in class, this is how I had used it in my life, or to think hypothetically, this is how I might use it in the future. So as I'm planning right now for our final that will take, our trimester ends in 2 weeks, I'm planning to do a completely constructed response test, just to give students that added chance to apply their learning to their actual life. Whether they've applied it already, they can tell me about that experience, or they can tell me how is this learning going to benefit them in the future. I'm a really firm believer that that's what education should do, is it should create lifelong learners, students who love learning and who can, or who have the skills, who are equipped to take that learning into their life. So I'm hoping this will kind of start bridging that gap for them.